You're listening to ABA On Call, hosted by myself, Rick Cabina, and Doug Kostowitz. This is your front row seat to the future of behavior analysis. Join us for fresh ideas, practical strategies, and bold conversations designed to inspire action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to ABA On Call. Today, as usual, I am joined by my trusty co-host, Dr. Doug Kostowitz. Doug, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. It's a nice fall day, so yes, it's great.
Awesome. Well, we are joined by two fabulous guests. We have Jen Shahin, we have Nicole Lockerman, and these two fabulous colleagues have a company called Socialize VR. And as stated, it is a company that's around virtual reality and social skills. So let me, before I get into asking you some questions, let me welcome you both, Nicole and Jen.
Hi, thank you for having us, Rick. How are you?
Amazing.
Nice to see everyone. Nice to meet you, Doug.
Nice to meet you too.
What we like to do when we interview people is, especially folks that might be new to the audience. I don't know how many behavior analysts have played with virtual reality, and that makes you two unique. And we like to get uh, your superhero origin story. What led you to create this company?
I'll start given my background in the flight behavior analysis. I felt like, uh, there was so much to compete with our young adult learners when it came to teaching social skills. Not enough modernized curriculum trying to be social. And when I say that, I mean technology. They were really using technology to get away from social opportunities. And I felt like a lot of the resources I had as a practitioner were so outdated. We had a lot of role play, and nothing was really generalizing into the real world. It was a wall, I would say, that I was hitting. And I know Nicole was hitting the same wall, and that's it within her practice as an educator. So I thought, okay, how can I use technology, the same technology, to pull them back in, to keep them motivated, and also to use modeling in a way that I know works best. So I decided that, virtual reality was a way that I could leverage this form of tuning in, of tapping in with my students. So that's where the idea started, Rick. And then there's about 7 hours worth of explaining how we put it together. But I eventually reached out to Nicole, who specializes in curriculum, and asked her to help me put together this application. So it incorporates a lot of teaching philosophies, applied behavior analysis, acceptance commitment therapy. It provides a safe space for them to practice social skills with live actors. So it kind of encompasses everything that I know as a practitioner was exciting for my students, but didn't really have the time to make. So I thought, let's just do this. Let's make it and make it possible for everyone else to use it. Take all the time, all the work it requires, put it out there.
Just to expand on what Jennifer was saying, as a principal of a high school, working specifically with students who have autism, I shared in the frustration that we could teach skills in school, but it wasn't being transferred in life. And so I was really excited when Jennifer approached me about this idea so that we could not only teach social skills, but build confidence within our students so that they were more apt to try these skills leaving school.
So you have what I think is the perfect use case for how behavior analysis blends with technology. Well, this is happening across the field, and how yeah, I don't think there's a lot of technology, number one, in our field, but it's happening. And you all started this uh, back in what, 20, was it 2018, 2019? So you're very early on the scene. Is that right?
Yeah, we started this around that time. I mean, the concept came to my mind in 2017, but we didn't actually start building it out until around 2019. Correct.
Okay. And so back then, you started off with what? You were maybe first generation Oculus, and you were, maybe you could just talk more too about like how you create virtual reality when people think about this technology. If you haven't messed around with headset, you really don't know what that experience is like.
Yeah, and I always refer to myself even as a techno peasant. So I personally was afraid of using this hardware, but I have a background in cinema in producing, and I often use 2D video to teach skills to my students and got great results, but still didn't see these skills transferring. And then one day I was in one of those, virtual reality zombie, events. And I was like, wow, this is, incredibly immersive. And not only that, I was like learning how to, strap myself up and all of this stuff, just using the VR, like pretending how to wear gloves. And I was like, this is wild, and I think that this is something my students can definitely, benefit from as well. So when I started thinking about how I produce actors in the past in movies and um, met with a software developer, and I worked with the software developer who had made this cool software called VR Noir, and it was like this detective scene where you go in and all these different possibilities could happen. And that's when the penny dropped for me. I thought, okay, this is what's missing. It's the idea of possibilities. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, can we make this app like choose your own adventure where we would present all these different challenges, and depending on what my student chooses, they'll be directed to that different outcome so that, they have an idea of what could potentially happen if they make certain choices or decisions in high stress life scenarios. And he was like, absolutely. This is awesome. Look, I can help you with that. So we basically had this huge production with actors, and we wrote these scripts, and I called all of these different practitioners I knew and students that I used to work with. And I said, what is the biggest pressing issues you're seeing in therapy? Or I would talk to my neurodivergent students and say, what are your biggest fears? What are these triggers? And we took all of these stories and we created this baseline of scenarios that we have now, this library of scenarios. Um, and after that, after this big production, it was pretty easy for them to create a software that just ingested it into this headset for us. Um, and the cool thing about that is when you're when we're showing them a 2D video, they can just like get up and walk away, or they can just, look away from the screen. And it's really difficult sometimes to keep them engaged or talking through. But when they got that headset on, they're kind of locked in, to this experience. And they like it because it just feels so real and again, so immersive. So that was kind of the process of getting to that point. It's just started as an idea, and it's over time you talk to enough people. It took a little bit of a village, but we reached the point we're at now, and it's been really exciting.
Well, that is a wonderful origin story. You had this need, you brought the need uh, forward, you married it to technology, and here you are. That means we're at our first secret word, which is technology.
Right? Yeah, it's a scary word. I know Nicole also finds that as much as people use technology, they're afraid to incorporate it in teaching, and they're afraid to use it in the classroom, use it in the therapy room, but they use it every day. So technology we find is a word that is both exciting and scary. And we hope to change that with Socialize VR, just to show people, everything is gonna be a little bit intimidating the first time we use it. But after you start seeing your students engage with it, get super excited and start using these skills, you're like, that's all I want to use.
Yeah.
So let's walk us through in the experience. So what would a child see? What would they be responding to initially? How would that be set up? Just someone who hasn't done anything with social skills VR, obviously. Tell us what that would look like.
Yeah, so what would happen is they would go into the headset, and I would be, or if they're Nicole, a teacher, anybody would be guiding them through the experience on a laptop from anywhere they are in the world, simultaneously logged in at the same time. Once we allow them into, because it's very controlled, once we allow them into the experience, they would be shown a library or a menu of social challenges. And we would talk about what's the most relevant issue for them today. Is it safety? Is it a first date? And what is it? Then they would choose the menu and they would be brought into an environment that's already active. And we call this an acclimatization period. So if they're inside of a bar, they would have anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to look for the exits, get themselves situated, find out, are these my people? Am I going to drink alcohol today? Does this look safe? We would just get them acclimatized to this environment. After that period, then they're suddenly directed to a challenge. Something will happen in that situation. Perhaps a girl has run into the bar and said, I just got in a car accident and I need someone to help me. I don't know what to do. Then we would pause and they would be given 3 options on how to respond. And in that first scenario, that first challenge, we're looking at, are they facing the action in front of them? Is their body aiming at the action in front of them? Because we know that's probably the first thing that needs to happen if you want to respond in a proactive way or a pro-social way or a way that is going to protect yourself. You need to know what's going on. So after they have successfully demonstrated that, then they would have to do the whole thing again. But now they're presented with 3 options on how they're going to respond to that. Depending what they choose, they'll be directed to that outcome. And so if they choose, hey, want a drink? After she said she got in an accident, well, she might be like, what are you talking about? No, I don't want to drink. So they kind of understand, wait, if I respond this way, it's going to have that outcome. And they can play every single choice so that they could see all these different outcomes play out. After that, they go through it again, but we ask them to demonstrate both of those skills together. So it's not only, are you aiming the direction? Are you choosing something that has a favorable outcome? But how quickly did you make that choice to help their listening skills increase? Because actually, Rick, is someone that I've worked with in the past that's taught me there's a certain amount of time that passes before you respond to a question that's not going to have a favorable outcome for you if you don't respond in that time. So it also works on their ability to listen and respond in good timing. And then we talk about it. And that's pretty much it, Doug.
One technical, well, actually 2 technical questions. So I've done like sandbox VR. You talked about shooting zombies. I've done that. Are they limited? Are they seated while they're doing this, or are they physically up in a space where they can move and walk around? Are they limited? Or like in those rooms, you can only go so far, but you can go wherever you want in that space and you're represented. Is it a kind of a seated situation or is it some move?
So you can sit or stand, and you have pretty good degree of a circumference around you that you can move. It's
Okay,
360 degrees, so you can
nice.
look above, behind you, all around, down. So
Awesome.
they can sit or they can stand. It's completely their choice.
Cool. And then one other technical, so behaviorally speaking, so they start to make certain things. Are there ways for you to inject sort of conditioned reinforcers or ways that you can help shape them down paths? Or is it left with, we're going to talk about it after the situation's over? Or can you respond while you're going, while you're interacting with the student?
The cool thing is you can do any of those. You can tailor it to the learning style of your student or your patient. So you have the ability to pause and talk through it and say, wow, this is great thinking. Or like, yeah, you noticed, the exit sign on your own, or you picked up on something that's really helpful. Or you can just let them go through the experience. Some of our, high functioning learners just like to play on their own and talk about it after. So it's to your discretion or the discretion of your learner.
I would say from going back to 2019, this is more of a comment than a question. I recall there was a social situation where someone asks a question about it's a social situation where there's two people, they're canoodling on the couch, and then you're given these different options. One of these options, it's like, what should you do? And the question is, say, hey, can I watch? And I'll never forget that the actors don't respond favorably to that. They're like, hey, what's this creep doing? And they throw popcorn at the camera. When you have the headset on, it looks like the popcorn is coming right at you. And I will never forget one of the people that I witnessed that used that was so upset. She took off the head like it was so real. And it's hard for people to understand if you haven't had an experience with virtual reality how game changing this technology is. So I know from back then, you started off with social skills. Where are you now? Are you still within social skills? Are you pivoting? Have you expanded? Like, where is the library at right now?
I mean, that's a great question. I'll let Nicole take the lead.
Another component to the VR application is our facilitator companion curriculum. And so, Doug, just to talk more about um, if we can guide the students through the process or if it's more of like an independent play. So, facilitators are trained to use Socialize VR, but also trained to ask specific questions to help guide the student along, to help them make more appropriate decisions, but also to reflect on the decisions that they have made and say, how do you think your friend would feel when you weren't positioning your body while speaking to them? Or how did he respond when you said this? How do you think he would respond if you said that? And so, what we have found, even going back to our early days, is that some of our students really prefer to make the cheeky choice or the wrong choice, which for us is just as much as a learning experience than making the right choice. So, we're able to provide different outcomes to the different scenarios and able to, as therapists or educators, talk through the consequences of each. And that's an important, I mean, for me as an educator, I want my students to know the consequences of how they speak, how they act, and really interact with their peers. And so I think that when we started this, we were really looking at specific social skills. But while that is true, that it's still our mission, I do feel like we are expanding more into the workplace. We're also talking about coercion, manipulation. So some of these really concerning topics that come up, especially for our young adults. So how to spot manipulation or coercion with friends when in college or living independently. So I feel like we have expanded more into social communication, workplace interactions, and then more of these risky behaviors that really land our students into some concerning times.
Yeah, I agree with what I echo Nicole's statements, and also feel that as technology is moving in such a rapid rate, we enjoy keeping up with that pace. And we've noticed so much lack of support with vulnerable users on online platforms. We've had to create some scenarios for this. And we realize that the broader scope of socialized VR will become social world, where we will create a safe space for vulnerable users online to not only practice their skills that they've learned within this VR curriculum with online users, but hopefully make it even, you know, more supported when they're going into the real world, because technology is moving in such a rapid pace. Educators need to keep up, and the world needs to create, I think, better, safer opportunities for them to have relationships that are meaningful, social situations that contribute to lasting friendships. And we would love to be a part of contributing to that. So we have so much of an ecosystem left to build, but we have started building it. And I think that that is the broader scope of socialized VR for us.
So that brings us to our second word, and that word is up skills. We actually, the third part was kind of bridging, like, where's the next steps? And one of the first, you started talking about building that ecosystem. Is this a closed system? So, for example, is it simply for one person interacting with the VR, or is there opportunities, or is it in the works that two individuals that maybe have autism can interact virtually with each other in a safe space? They don't necessarily need to be in the same room, but they can practice. Is something more opening the world up to them? Is that kind of in the works, or what are some of the other things in the works?
Yeah, and we've had talks about incorporating things like VR chat, so that they can start live communicating with each other, or we can live communicate. And we do feel that with all of these new exciting tools, like these Google glasses or Ray-Ban glasses,
Yeah.
we definitely feel that it's about time to start expanding our software into these opportunities to wear these glasses and get real time live feed support. So the idea would be that right now, this is made for a facilitator and a student, one to one.
Mhm.
But after they've graduated from this, they could start using these glasses and tuning in our support. And then what would happen after that, like I said, is a larger platform in which they all go to communicate with each other, join these forums or these experiences online, and then again in the real world. Right. So right now we are more of a one-to-one experience, but we have explored group skills sessions, and that's how we know that this is a possibility that would have a very positive impact.
Now, we're going to try the group skills in a new trial coming out in December and January at Penn West University. So this school, the basis program, has been using Socialize VR with their autism program. And so Adam, the director of the program, will be using it individually with students, but then bringing the group together collectively to talk through the experience and see how exposure to anxiety provoking situations individually, how we then talk about it collectively as a group. So we're excited to share the research or the data coming out probably early February on how socialize can be used in a group setting.
I think one of the big differentiators, and I don't think, I know, one of the big differentiators is you used real actors. I have been around several companies and other people, not necessarily ABA, that it's very easy to animate something and then to put you in there and maybe you can interact. Some people are starting to hook up these digital assets
Mhm.
to ChatGPT, and then you get this kind of interaction. But you all have been using actors from the beginning, and these actors are fabulous. Is the intention as you move forward to continue using live actors?
Absolutely. I feel that the human component that it brings to teaching is crucial. I feel that the nuance, is so difficult to capture still with AI models. And I also realized that with a lot of our students, they lose the buy-in when they know that the person has been assimilated.
Yes.
When they see that this is a real person, they buy into that possibility in such a, committed way. So it really enhances their learning experience because of that. And we're not going to let that go. However, it is expensive, right? This is a high value production. So we are looking at ways to incorporate AI into our product. And one of those ways could be a green screen studio where we use AI software to create the location so that this becomes far more accessible to clinics or universities, hospitals, even families, so that they can now tap in and ask us to make bespoke scenarios that are tailored for a lot of the situations that are far more relevant to their teachings.
I love the fact that you continually expand. I had a technical question before, and I guess this isn't so much about the future, maybe kind of is because you mentioned it. But what's the software like people listening to people in our audience might want to give this a shot? Can they use, do they have to buy one of Apple's headsets that's like $4,000? Is there an Oculus or like what's the technology requirements for people to use it? Like you mentioned the Ray Bans and like there's so much tech that just keeps moving forward. But where are you now in terms of if someone wants to use it, what do they need?
So right now, to download the facilitator app, you need a Windows computer and you have to also have a Meta Quest, although I would presume we could also still use it on the Oculus. Um, and you also need a phone and a Meta account. So that's kind of you sign up with your email address, you receive them via the Meta account, and then you receive an invite to download Socialize VR onto your headset. You just also have to download the facilitator app onto the Windows program. Right now, Socialize is built to be used with therapists and educators. We are also working on, we are writing a certification for Socialize allies. So, allies, so it would be parents or maybe paraprofessionals who don't have the same skill training that educators or therapists may have, but still see the value of using Socialize VR. So we're hopefully able to launch that in November so that we can have parents and professionals using Socialize VR.
I have a sneaking suspicion that with all the meta uh, references you're giving, that this is going to get back to Mark Zuckerberg and he's going to give you $1 billion
Love
to
that.
make this happen because it's such a phenomenal. The idea is just is wonderful. Marrying like, this is where the heart of behavior analysis is. And you both, Jennifer and Nicole, you both explain this, that there's this pressing problem. It's challenging to be able to, especially social skills. Uh, how can you make mistakes if you're doing it in an acting scenario? Okay, that's one thing. But when you're out there in a authentic situation, it's very painful. And we all have relationships with people. And if you are practicing social skills, and you could ruin a friendship depending on what happens. And as we move forward, I'm very intrigued that this, I remember that when I first had my first Oculus, I used to get very motion sick, very motion sick. And that never happens anymore when I'm on any device. And I've tried them all. Tried Apple's product, which is phenomenal, very pricey. Meta, all of these different ones are great. But all right, what do you all think in terms of the glasses and where that's going? Because that's a little bit like you're all dealing with virtual reality, but one of the things the glasses can do is augmented reality. So do you see a way that you may, I won't say pivot, but add to the virtual reality component with some of these glasses and what they have to offer?
I mean, we've definitely talked about this, Rick. It's something that, we're super cognizant of, and we know, again, the power of AR with these glasses. And we talk about, how we can incorporate it. I think right now, our main goal, though, is to keep them feeling supported, using that as a tool to keep them safe and supported more than anything. So we're trying to figure out how to be a little like Cyrano de Bergerac or something for them, get them to live feed us into their experiences when they go into something high stress for the first time. How we can incorporate AR is a very new conversation for all of us. And there's definitely ways we can use visual prompting to improve their, novel experiences in the real world. Um, but, if you want to join in on our next whiteboard about it, then please do, because what we tend to do is survey a lot of practitioners and teachers and ask them, how do you think we can improve upon the technology we're using? And so we're just starting that journey now. So it's a great question. And if your listeners want to contribute, we welcome their suggestions. We love working with the broader scope of practitioners and students. So what do you think
In terms of people joining you,
in terms of AR and visual
I
prompting?
yeah, I think it's going to be one of these areas that the ability for it to positively impact people has always been there, but it's been a technology issue. Like the Meta Ray Bans, if anyone has had a chance to see them, they're like my glasses, except they're thicker. And now that the form factor, they look cool, they're easy, and they are so incredibly precise. You can't see my eyes from here, but if I look to the right, if I just glance down there, I'm controlling interaction. So I think we're going to usher in a whole new set of different types of ways of augmenting behavior analysis and different types of programs because the technology is finally there. And those glasses haven't been released yet, but as
Oh, yeah.
technology keeps improving, I think something is going to happen in a big way. But we need people like yourselves who have a background in a history who can program this. And we need people at the table. And I've been saying this for a long time that as technology keeps growing, behavior analysis needs to be there.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And this is the best way, I think, for behavior analysis to be used. Sorry, not sorry. But
If people want to reach out to you all or learn more about your program, what should they do?
they can visit our website at www.socializevr.com. They can visit us on Instagram, which is our handle is socializevr. We also can be found on LinkedIn and Facebook. And there's also my personal email that's listed on the website if you just want to have a coffee chat with me. How socialize is bad. But yeah, please, and by any, of those platforms, you can reach us. Please do.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to our last secret word, which is lives. Nicole, Jennifer, on behalf of Doug and I, thank you for your time. It's been a fabulous conversation.
I've had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Excellent. Then thank you all for joining us at ABA On Call.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being part of ABA On Call. Want to grab your CEU? Just click the link in the instructions, complete the quiz, enter the secret words, and pay the fee to download your certificate. You've done the work, claim the credit. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.